This book has been calling my name for a long time, and I finally had time to read it in between my author interviews. Not only did I get to read it, but I get to talk about it with fellow friend and podcaster Alyssa. She's been on episodes with me before. As always, her energy is just unmatched. We talk about devils, demons, Blackwell as a character. We're talking about Phantasma. One of my favorite books this year, hands down. Welcome to Busy Reading Romantasy, a video podcast that discusses books that merge elements of romance and fantasy while occasionally exploring other genres. We get to escape our world and dive deep into themes of good versus evil, power dynamics, and all of the delicious taboo topics. Curiosity and open-mindedness are a must. That being said, this is a podcast for mature audiences only and will contain spoilers. Your mental health matters, so be sure to check the trigger warnings of each book to decide if this is the right episode for you to listen to. Now, let's get into today's episode. Oh my goodness, Alyssa, where do we even start with this book?
If I had to describe this book in 3 words, I'd say what OCD representation, gothic, toxic relationship, miscommunication. That's more than 3 words, but like that's the best way I can describe Phantasma is like OCD, toxic relationship. He's a ghost, but he's physical when we have sexy time. Also, like my sister is running away to save my home, but also the place she's running away to is hella dark,
right,
and sexy, and has ghosts and ghouls and demons. This book is like the gothic older sister of Carnival.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. Can you hold on 1 second? Can you hear the music?
No.
Oh, okay, good. I can hear it loud and clear. My sweet, sweet grandma has just learned how to use Spotify.
Listen,
that's
I'm
great.
still learning how to use Spotify. It is okay.
Just down like the smallest little smidge. Okay, so starting from the very beginning, and I know you have a few thoughts about the beginning too, as we're getting the story set up. We meet the main character and her sister, obviously. We have it set in New Orleans. There's ghosts. The author does include a nice little like description of like the different types of ghosts and stuff like that. Which it's always nice to just kind of have that right off the front. I think it can always be explained well throughout the story, but that just avoided unnecessary confusion of like picturing one ghost and there's actually like 4 different kinds of ghosts.
I think like a phantom versus a ghost and like a demon versus a ghost, like what are the differences? I don't know. Also like necromancy.
Yeah,
it was interesting. I've never, whenever a female main character is introduced in a romantasy or a fantasy, I always want to understand like why are we following this person and what makes her special. Did she just get her powers? Has she been practicing for a while? Does she even know she has them? And in this story, it was kind of nice that like that dark gothic theme is not, introduced pretty soon. Like when we were introduced into this world, I feel like the house is a character, the setting, like New Orleans, you immediately think like humidity, like old cobblestone, like it's got, the city's got stories, like you have that vibe, you know, it's a party, you know, during the day and at night, but then deep into the night, like things start to become like ghoulish, and that's kind of cool. But there was an element that I think people should know before they start the book, which is a trigger warning for the loss of a parent. Just because pretty early on when we're introduced to Ophelia and her sister and her mom does end up passing away pretty suddenly, and that does kind of push the story off. But I do wish there was a bit of a warning, and I'm sure you can find them online for sure. Me going in, I didn't know, so yes,
fair.
People not knowing. Yeah, there's a death of a parent pretty early on, and then the financial struggle that comes with that. And things that weren't discussed before. So I was like, oh wow. So yeah, very realistic in a very fantasy setting. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And they find out that essentially they are going to lose the house if they don't come up with the money for it. And Ophelia's like, what do you mean? And
Yeah, their mom,
Genevieve's
didn't she like
like,
take out loans? Like she did something.
yeah, exactly. And Genevieve's like, hey, I actually got to go this way. But that basically is what leads them both to Phantasma, which
Mm-hmm.
I always picture very much like terrifying funhouse situation where they're like,
Yeah.
come on in. Maybe you'll survive. You probably won't, but here are the rules.
I imagined like one of those big like circus tents that are usually red and white. I imagined it as like black and
Oh,
white. That's what
interesting.
I kind of imagined as like that
Yeah.
inverted image of like the iconic like circus tent. But I
Yeah.
wanted it to be like it smells like jasmine, like just lanterns outside, like it's massive outside, and then on the inside it's like walking into like a gothic house, like something's
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the lines move, something like that. Like I wanted it to be very. I felt like the setting itself was very atmospheric, and I could have heard an entire story about who started the first, Phantasma, and I could have gone off of like the first time that like someone goes in and like love at first sight or like a doomed romance, which we do get something of later.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That would be a nice like prequel of sorts, is the very first year that Phantasma's played. No.
I would read that. I like when they
Yeah.
have like a setting that was established in another book, and you get to find out like the deeper element of that character, that story. Like, I don't know, that could be. I would read that if the author read that for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, absolutely. So before we get into Phantasma itself, and like I definitely want to go through and talk about the different levels.
Oh yeah.
um, but before we get into that, let's pause and I would love to know your thoughts more on the character Ophelia versus her sister Genevieve, and how both of those um, work together to kind of create the perfect storm that led them both
Mm.
essentially to the same place.
Yes. So for me with Ophelia, I did want to reference that, and I did jump a little bit, that when her mom passed away in the family, the necromancy power moves on to the oldest daughter,
Mhm.
and her sister Genevieve is like, I don't want that.
Mhm.
I don't want that. Keep that away from me. Mew mew. No. And I thought it was interesting how her sister was a lot more outspoken from the very beginning versus with Ophelia. I feel like her perspective to me, if they had not said like OCD, I would have been like, okay, like maybe she has like anxiety of some sort. Just like
For
this,
sure.
speaking as someone who has anxiety, like just like her process of thought, it was never like I'm gonna make a decision and I'm just gonna go right away and I'm not gonna think this through. It was very like methodical. And
Mhm.
I deeply relate to that. So for me with Ophelia, I felt like where there was more hesitancy, when she was brave, it felt like she had to be forced to be in that position, or she almost had to like take no shit, like take no prisoners. Like she just didn't have the
Mhm.
time to be nice at certain points, and I like that about her. Like cut the shit, like let's get to, how are we going to survive this? What are you willing to
Mhm.
sacrifice? She was like, okay, like if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, and I like that. Versus with
Mhm.
Genevieve, I feel like we had that right away. Like I feel like she already kind of knew, like okay, our house is in
Yeah.
danger. I'm gonna go to Phantasma and I'm gonna win this fucking game and I'm gonna make it work. And if I don't, then I'm not trying to be homeless. Like I'm trying to figure this out.
Right.
Versus we also see it in romantic situations as well, like where Ophelia may not put up with more stuff. I do feel like her boundaries and her ability to kind of step back and be like, do I really want the situation? Am I really okay with
Mhm.
going into certain scenarios? Like, let me think
Yeah.
about this for a minute.
Yeah.
I felt like Ophelia was a lot more passionate, like punchy, versus I feel like her sister, I kind of want to see, like in a real romantic situation, how her sister would respond to conflict, because I don't really think we got to see that. So
Mhm.
I would read book 2 just to get a better sense of her sisters. I don't feel like we got as much of her as I would have liked.
Fair.
I didn't feel that like emotional connection. As someone who has siblings, I didn't feel that emotional connection. I wish we had a little bit more time with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like I wish I could compare them more. I just felt like Ophelia was so front and center, and
Mhm.
that her space, like mentally, what she was going through was such a big part of the story that her sister to me faded in the background a little bit. Like the goal was to find her,
Absolutely.
but she did like I did forget about her
Yeah.
at one
Yeah.
point. I was like,
No.
oh, this is a lot. Like, And when she finally does show up, I put in my notes, like, it felt a little anticlimactic. Like, it would have been cool to see her as, like, somehow getting so lost in the games that she becomes, like, demonic. Like, it would have been cool to see her, like, I don't know, like, that spunkiness become something more manipulative and, like, dark. Like, that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she's just kind of there. And I was like, oh,
that is
more.
That is a good point. I think, first of all, Ophelia very much has the plight of the older sister, you know, the kind of expectation of carrying this burden. And I think that also kind of sets the tone of tending to put others before yourself.
Yeah.
And that's always something that, you know, eventually has to get learned. And I completely agree with you that there's so much. At first I was like, you know, because I get also being an eldest sister and having little siblings, I could only imagine what I'd be trying to do to get back to them. And there is so much thrown at them, her specifically, in the beginning of Phantasma. Like, I felt like, we'll get to Genevieve when we get to her. Like,
yeah, bro, like you're literally about to make a promise that if you don't win, you're probably going to die. Like, you have to sacrifice, like, your fears at the door. Like, you have to tell them, like, what you're most afraid of. Like,
and there can only be one winner. So, like, at some point, either one of them will either have to die or forfeit if they both want to survive. Which we'll get to that.
Yeah,
I was like, let me not skip ahead.
The stress is already so high.
Yeah.
I can't help it but feel like her sister was a little bit selfish. Like, if you knew your older sister, you would know she was going to come after you.
You would know she would worry regardless. She wouldn't just sit there and be like, okay, maybe she'll come back at some point. Like, you know, it's yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and also, like, the rule of 3, like, with Ophelia's, like, the things that she did everything in 3s.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here, I'm like, as a sibling, my concern would be more so, like, is my sister going to be okay while I'm gone?
Right.
You know, like, I'm leaving her with all this grief and a house that's not super stable. Like, I don't know. Like, I would be more concerned
if she died in Phantasma, and then Ophelia was just left to question what happened to her sister for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Horrible.
It's a lot. Like, I know that they needed the money, and I understand the stakes were already high in that situation. But now you have Ophelia, like, desperate and in a really uncomfortable, unsafe situation, searching for her sister. And on top of all of that, she has this annoying, grating voice who happens to be incredibly good looking, who we later find out to be someone romantic. And I will leave it at that for now. Tell me why I imagined Theo James as the romantic lead.
Oh,
I don't know why, but I imagined Theo James as he had to be snarky, sexy, timeless. And he had to be able to kind of, like, not be unhinged, but I think he had to be able to be, like, going a little bit mad, like, just a little bit.
I like it.
I imagine Theo James, and that's, you know, Theo James, like, Divergent era. Like, I imagined Theo James, like, buff and, like, you know, like, I don't want you, but I die for you. You go, I go. That's who I was. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna vote Theo James. Yes. I'll throw my hat in the ring for Blackwell, but yes. And also for I'm a big, like, visual person. I imagined Ophelia as Lily Collins. I just thought she'd be a great Ophelia, and I was like, yeah, I could totally see that. But for some reason, I could not cast her sister in my head. That's how I knew she wasn't in the center. That's how I knew, like, I wasn't building an emotional bond, because I literally couldn't picture her. Like, she wasn't. It wasn't like a Primrose situation where it's like a Hunger Games, like, you see her in your mind.
Right.
No, like, I didn't have time to build an emotional connection. I was like, oh.
That's
before
fair.
I knew it, she was gone. I was like, oh.
I could talk to her. I could speak to her character, but I also could tell you nothing if there was any sort of physical descriptors about her. I'm bad. I'm bad at them in general, but I agree. I couldn't tell you. I mean, besides, like, a nondescript character basically in my head, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the last thing this was the first time I think I have ever read about a character with OCD.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an interesting to see that dialogue in her head and the way the thoughts bubble up and like this struggle of knowing it's not rational but still having to do them and
Yeah.
like complete the things. And if she tried to fight it, I thought that was really interesting. From a personal standpoint, I have not been diagnosed OCD, and I will say the thoughts that I have don't impact my life enough to where I feel like I would need a diagnosis. But I do have to sometimes check myself because I am a compulsive checker. I'll check my ID like multiple times. And it's always in the same place. It's never not there, or I have to check emails and dates multiple times, even if I know that like that's the right thing. So it's like it's such a small comparison. And I guess my point of bringing it up, I don't know. It's just I think books are a great way to like kind of reflect on your own inner things. And I think what was interesting for me is to read it as for her, it felt like very much it was an other voice
Mm-hmm.
versus for me. And again, I don't have OCD, but where it feels it's my voice. It's just me. It's just me needing to check multiple times. And I've been able to work on it. And again, it's not that like impacting in my life. But I do think reading about her experience made me tune into that part of my own experience as well. So I just thought that was interesting to be part of the story and see her struggle through that as well.
I care about someone who struggles with OCD, like little things, and I've seen that for them. It's like it's more of like in a world where you don't have control, to find something you can control is like really important, even if it's just like washing your hands after every time that you like touch something, or like, but then the downside is that like your hands are always dry or they start to crack, and like it becomes like almost too much, and the person knows it's a lot, not too much for me, just too much for them in general, like for themselves. So even though Phantasma is a physical place she ends up going into to save her sister, I considered the OCD element of the story as she was also navigating being inside her own mind and how that looks. And then when you do end up talking to someone romantically and they witness these things that you're doing, how are they going to respond to that? And we get to see in the story a character who's very like full of snarky banter things where he doesn't take himself too seriously. We do get to see one of my favorite moments in the book where we do see him kind of ground her, and he notices a thing that she does, and he tells her to like breathe like 3 times. They take deep breaths. And I was like, as someone who loves someone who has certain tics and like things they do, to see that about them and in a healthy manner be like, this brings you comfort, it's not hurting anyone, let's try this to ground you in this moment, like how can I be here for you, was so selfless and so loving. And I think it's where the book shines for me, is that like you never know how like representation in a book will be helpful. So for me, like seeing anxiety representation, curvy representation means the world to me. If you can write good descriptions of anxiety, because I've read bad ones, if you can write a good one, I'm in, you know, let's go. But with the OCD, when I was reading it, I was like, you know, even though my partner has different tics, it was one of those things where I was like, oh wow, like this is it's immersive. I listened to the audiobook and then I did Kindle Unlimited. But with the audiobook, like the way that she's able to communicate, like not it's like a stress, like she sounds stressed, like if she doesn't do these things. Even in a horrible situation in Phantasma, she's like, but I need to do ABC. And it's like, oh, like my heart was pounding for her in stressful moments. So for me, I was like, she has to do her things so we can get through this moment. So yeah, I think that's where the book shined for me. Like, yes, the gothic themes, but like, and the spice was pretty good. But like, her navigating the situations, I was like, I just want her to get through it.
Yeah,
Why are you
I also really like what just occurred to me was that I realized throughout the story, because we are dealing with like paranormal
here?
and devils and demons and ghosts and all stuff, like I kept questioning, is this going to be like a being? Like, is that not actually part of her? And is it something else rather than, and I like how it wasn't.
It was
Because
just her.
that would have been an easy way out, in a
True.
sense of like, that's not actually her, it's something that's like attacking her that's other than her, but it is a part of her and it stayed a part of her. So I think that was a nice way to incorporate that and not just like blame it on something else that's
Get
intending to
that.
harm her. Yeah.
Ooh, I haven't thought about it that way. Yeah, she
Yeah,
could
it
have
just
easily been
occurred to
like
me.
paranormal. This isn't you. This is a curse. It's like,
No, I thought for
nah,
sure. I
this
thought
is
for
actually
sure
her.
it
Yeah.
was gonna be some like devil that got assigned at birth or something, and it's like no, she actually legit had to deal
Right.
with that on her own, and that was her. So
That's kind of how I feel about like It Was All a Dream. That's one of my most hated tropes.
yeah,
I hate it when they're like, and then she woke up, and I'm like,
come on now, yeah,
or like I
yeah.
was lying the whole time. Like I can't
Ah,
stand it where they're like, I never
ah,
really loved you. I was faking it, and the real love interest is the guy who's in the background who like treated her super shitty. I'm like,
yeah.
no, that's also not going to work for me.
No,
I will
try
slam that
again.
book closed so fucking fast. Ooh, I will block that author in my
Yeah,
mind so fucking fast.
yeah,
No,
that's
I
fair. That's fair.
immediately no. But at least in this book, like, I will say that the character who I disliked the most, I didn't even dislike for like, I, I didn't even dislike once certain things happen in this book. You think
Yeah,
like, oh, someone's just a dick. Like it is what it is. And then you get to a certain point in the book, you're like, oh no, like you have historical evidence this person is a horrible person. Like
yeah,
it is something that meme where someone like they bring the camera back and they're like, you can pinpoint the exact moment when her heart breaks. That was
yeah.
literally me reading this book. You can pinpoint the exact moment I get the ick. And I was like, oh no, I can't go back. I've
Right,
already read it.
right.
It's already in my mind. But
Yeah,
yes, this book will make you feel something. It'll make you feel heartbreak, horny, driven. I want to get out of this room, out of this ring of hell. Like it'll make you
yeah.
feel something. Yeah.
It makes me feel a lot of things.
It'll make you feel a lot of
Let's
things.
let's hop into the levels. This was so much fun. I
Mm,
loved these. I don't know. My one thing, okay, so there's 9 levels. They each have a devil associated with them.
yes.
And what's interesting is that you think it's going to be all the sins, but then it kind of goes off the wall because look, in the beginning, I mean, okay, so the first level is limbo. That's not a sin, but then you get lust, greed, gluttony, wrath. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. But then you get deceit, violence, fraud, and then level 9. And then I was like, oh, wait. So, I mean, I know there's only 7 sins,
I
but
was like, wait, is it the sins? And I was like, wait, it can't be the sins because it's nine. I was like,
no, yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, I don't know.
It
I don't
was
know
like,
biblical text super well. So I was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
maybe there is nine. Like I was second guessing myself for sure. I was like, okay, creative license. Maybe there's some creative license in here. I will
Yeah.
say, I did add that in my notes. I meant to ask, like, out of, I guess out of each one we read in the book, which one did you like the most? You already know mine because you saw my notes.
Yeah, mine was the exact same, lust. That is just, I think, just my sin of choice in life anyway. Lust and I are very well
You
acquainted.
know, yeah. If you look at our books, don't look over there. Don't look. No, no.
I don't know what you're talking
No,
about.
no. Yeah, it's not what it looks like. Then why do you have so many? Oh God.
For research.
Don't look at my Kindle. You know, if something happens to me, I need you to throw my Kindle into the ocean.
I
You know what I
got
mean?
you. Actually, I would just
Yeah, no
borrow
one
it
can
and
see
see the
that.
book
I
recommendations.
recently found out that Goodreads automatically updates my Kindle. Whenever I finish a book in Kindle Unlimited, it updates in Goodreads. So people were seeing the books I finished. I thought I was being sneaky. I was like, oh yeah, I'm reading Twilight again. No, I'm reading the I don't know, the ice barbarian giant peen on the planet of blue Earth. Like it's like I was reading,
Yeah.
you read something crazy, and then someone liked the book I was reading. I immediately was like, stop. So yeah, I don't even have a big
Don't
following. Someone
scare.
liked the book I was reading. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I do have that as one of my notes. Was there was a room, okay, the lust level and the vampire moment when she thought it was Blackwell, but it was not.
Right. So you pick a drink of choice. Of course, our girl gets bloodlust because it's red. And things start getting hot and heavy.
Hell yeah.
Blackwell comes and saves her
Theo
and
juice.
gives an antidote. But then we realize it's not Blackwell, so she calls the real Blackwell.
3 times.
She has to say it 3 times to bring him in. And he was like, so how did you know it wasn't me?
So why are you like moaning it though? What do you mean? She was like, I was in danger. He was like, in danger of falling in love. I was like, you piece of shit. Like he was so like at every turn. At one point she's like, don't, it was one of my favorite lines where she says like,
Yeah.
don't follow me. And he says something, yeah. She says, I told you not to follow me. And he says, I apologize if I gave you the impression I do what I'm told. It was the banter for me. I was like, that's what I like to see.
Blackwell has made his way into my top 3, I think.
Oh wow.
I was
Those are some strong
enamored.
words.
I was enamored with him. I have a whole bunch of quotes that I pulled from him. So much so that I actually I'm gonna post a little carousel on
Cute.
Instagram. Check it
Yeah.
out with some of my favorite quotes. Just for example, come on, Angel, show me your teeth. I love it.
Okay, he does have every book has a pet name or a nickname, if you will. His for her is Angel, which is interesting because they're in a very dark, for lack of a better word, it's like hell. They're in hell, and
Yeah.
she is this like light. She is this like she's very fiery towards him. Where I feel like she was more hesitant in the real world. In this world, she's a lot more like take no shit, and he's really into that. And I was like,
yeah. Which, and him calling her Angel, immediately I was like, there's more to her. We don't know yet, but there's more to her. I knew it immediately. Foreshadowing events.
For future events, when he called her Angel, I was like, why that one? But then I thought, okay, maybe she's just like, but she's not nice to him. So I was like, what do you mean? In my mind, I just thought, okay, why that nickname? And I also thought, please don't make it something like weird. You know what I mean? Like, don't make it something like
baby doll,
manipulative and fucked up. Like, come here, little baby carrot. Like something like that. Like, come here, my little asparagus. Like something like
my little celery stalk.
Come here, my little celery stalk. It's like, okay, there's certain things where I'm like, it's not sexy to me.
That's
someone
not the
else
type
may
of...
be like, ooh, I love a farmer's market. But for me, I don't want to be called a little carrot stalk. I don't want to be called a little Danish. Like I don't want to be called that.
This is not Veggie Tales.
Yes, he calls her Angel.
Yeah. No, I loved it. But I was like, there's more here.
What do you mean by that? I was like, yeah, what do you mean by that?
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? 2, maybe 3, no, 2 more of my favorite flavors. There's no article of clothing I don't know how to take off efficiently. Again, just no, absolutely. I'm in love. I will never beg you for anything. And he turns around and goes, famous last words. The last one is towards the end when things are like actually heating up. So the whole thing is they can't fall in love in Phantasma. They fail. It's not a spoiler because you knew this was all spoilers. They fail horribly, which I wanted them to fail epically. I loved their love for each other. How they continued to help each other was the most beautiful things. He goes, and I quote, "If anyone ever says this to me, I'm yours. Just be prepared for that. I want you to let me see you. All of you. There's nothing I have seen yet that has made me look away. No atrocity you could commit to make me not want you like this. No matter how forbidden. I want to know everything. I want to see all the darkest corners of your mind. I, quote, I want to taste your sins."
Some would say that's a starter pack to passion, to love. If that was a starter to bread, we would have risen. we would have risen. We would be a beautiful sourdough ready for butter or olive oil or whatever you fucking want. It would be some Food Network shit. You know it. And you know it. For the listeners out there who think, damn, that's kind of weird. Tell me you don't get turned on by hot chefs. Tell me right now. Tell me right now if your dream celebrity came to you in a demonic, scary place and they rolled up their shirt, their button down, crisp shirt, and they were like, I want to make you a nice hot meal. Just lean back and enjoy.
Okay.
And they
Calm
were
down,
chopping.
sauteed broccoli.
And they were sauteing that broccoli. And they were like, ooh, the demons are outside, but don't worry, because I got a risotto on the stove for you, big girl. You would want it, okay?
I'm done.
Period. In Blackwell, Theo James was like, hey, I want to taste your darkest sin. Also, I have a really good charcuterie board waiting for you in the fridge, girl. I'm pretty sure you would be like, I also have a book. I have a brand new book. I just ordered it for you, and it's like sitting on the counter, and I have a nice little crisp Olipop. You know what I mean? It would be like, you wouldn't question it. You wouldn't question it, you know? So, yeah. There's something for there's a sexy Food Network for everybody, all right? Yeah, yeah.
They tell me my standards are too high, and I'm like, simply eat my sins. That's,
you know, just
that's
simply
not too much.
Call me Angel, and let's hope that it's not for some nefarious reasons. So, you know, there's a lot going on at the moment. One of my favorite lines he said was, if that was your threshold of pleasure, imagine being worshipped by the real thing. I put, and I was like, whoa, whoa, these are some dark.
Anything?
He's making promises. I bet your ass can pass that check because you're making promises.
Anything?
I was like, wow.
On worshiping, yeah, anything I'm worshiping or devouring, sold. Immediately sold.
Who said that? If someone went up to you and was like, I'm gonna devour you, you'd be like, oh,
I'd be
okay,
like,
Army
sir,
Hammer.
know what you're talking about.
Okay, Army
Absolutely.
Hammer. You'd be scared. But you'd also be like, am I into this? You'd be questioning things.
Tell me more.
Listen,
the average person does not say that, so that is like my qualifier. If you say
ask,
that,
are you up? You up? Are you in the mood?
What are you doing?
Canoodle?
What are you up to?
Bang. People still say bang. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where you're like, for us, you know, no. I'm a committed girly, so I sometimes feel like I'm out of the loop of social situations, and I'm like, damn, I'm really glad I don't have to date anymore, because if I did, I'd be weird as shit. I would just be like, do you want to have a nice warm meal and read this book? Why does it say Planet Ice Barbarian? I'd be like, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
It's educational. Yeah. It's educational.
Just come over and read. We'll have a great time.
Have you heard of Blackwell? Have you heard of being devoured?
What does your worshiping look like?
What is your worship? If you had to be in a hellhole with 9 different versions of hell, which one would you want to be in? Like, are you a lust? Are you a gluttony? Right. What are you into? Yeah.
What's your level of wrath? These are the things I need to know.
So fast. I don't. We will be blocked so fast. I'd be like, I'm a reader, please. No. So it's okay.
I know.
Yeah. And my last iconic line is more of a sweet line to kind of back up with what you said.
Yeah.
And it's, sometimes it gets too loud and you need help. And it was about her OCD. It was about mental health. It was about friendship and love. I was like, this is actually super beautiful.
Yeah.
But I did skip something very important in the story, which is when she first meets Blackwell. Pretty much everything is like everything is a game. Everything is like a deal, you know? And some would say a curse. A bad deal is like a curse. So yes, both of us. Some would say
that's almost foreshadowing some important events.
It's foreshadowing of the foreskin. So long story short, so she meets Theo James. You know, he's wearing his little worn leather jacket that every male love interest fucking wears. He's wearing his little jacket. He's looking. My memory. Okay, this is actually really fucking cool. So, reincarnation and identity, right? This is a really big element of the story. So when the games start, I thought it was really cool how, even though he was super sassy and bright, Once the game stops, he loses all his memory. And then when the game starts again, he regains memory. But I think some things are fuzzy. And then he remembers who he is later on, but at this point he doesn't have a full idea of like who he actually is, like outside of this place.
Yeah.
And Ophelia is trying to kind of help him with that while also trying to find her sister. And the
And
deal is,
Gabriel. There's a
and
lot.
there's
She's
a
doing a
lot going
lot. In
on.
between each
Yeah.
level, and the levels were like boom, boom,
There's
boom.
a
I was like,
locket, there's a
can you
locket.
sleep for a second?
No, because there's ghouls in the bathroom. Like, there's stuff going on, bro. Like, it's a lot. Like, I feel like I have to like summarize this in the most like Chad way possible. When I say Chad, I mean that one guy in your college class who reads an entire chapter and it's like A, B, and C and gets like straight A's for some reason. This is how I'm gonna describe Phantasma in the most simplified Chad way possible, which is gonna be, she meets Blackwell. Blackwell's like, hey, I can help you win this game, but like I guess like 10 years of your life or something. Is it 10 or 7?
No, it's 10. Yeah. If
Yeah.
she doesn't, so he doesn't remember that he was able to tell her when like the last winter was happening. He gets the most of his memory back. And he told her something about a heart and a key. And then she's like, hey, I know you. And he's like, no, you don't. She's like, yeah, actually, I do. We talked before. And that's when they make the little bargain where if she can help him solve that. What are the intricacies? Was it 2 separate ones? Because then also he has to help her.
Yeah, so he has to help her survive and win the game.
But then she has to find the stuff before the game ends, or else she'll owe him 10 years of her life.
Yeah. And then like he genuinely doesn't remember who he is. And it is a deal, but to me it's not manipulative because they both get something out of it. But I didn't trust him 100%. Well, 10 years is a long time. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, did she finally agree? Was it between levels 2 and 3? Did he help her in the last level without like?
I think it was pretty early on. She like,
but it wasn't right away. So I do like how she had the determination to try at least the first level without having him help.
Calling him. When she did finally call on him, I knew things had gotten pretty bad. I was like, okay,
yeah,
you're doing as much as you can. You just lost your mom. Your sister pretty much dipped with the right reasons, but like the sense of being abandoned was so thick. Like that sense of like that I'm all doomed if we can't like solve this issue. Even though anxiety was not necessarily like written in the text, I felt if it wasn't OCD, she could have easily written this in a way where it's like it's anxiety. Like that sense of like if this all doesn't go, if one thing goes wrong, it all goes wrong. I felt that really heavily. And I was like, that was like the guy was afraid. Wasn't he afraid of like birds? Like everyone's fears are on the table.
Yeah. And they'll pop out at any time. And there was that one, she was like, oh, I haven't faced mine yet. Yeah, that's pretty, I feel like also coming from a background of anxiety is that like there's nothing quite like this feeling of like impending doom coming at you and you just can't stop it.
Yeah. I think the best way, I was talking to a friend of mine about this. I'm like, how would you describe anxiety? And she was like, anxiety is going to bed at night and constantly feeling like your oven is still on. Like anxiety is feeling like you say goodbye, like you say goodnight to a date and they leave. And it's that sense of like, oh my God, they fucking hate me. Like something happened. I did something. I said something offensive. Let me replay the whole night in my mind. You know what I mean? And then the night's already over, but your brain is like, So yeah, that's what this book, Blackwell, I did kind of feel more comfortable later on, realize like she could call him if she really needed help. But I would have loved to see more of his like phantom like abilities. Like I would have loved to see him like almost like the Darkling from like Shadow and Bone. I would have loved to have more of like a signature about him. Like when he leaves, there's like a flame of smoke or like a card or some bullshit. Like I would have loved like something more like I don't know. I needed him to have a weird thing. You know?
That's fair. That's fair. I also like how he couldn't interfere with the levels. He
Mm-hmm.
could help her verbally, but he couldn't interfere. And I think that was another layer that helped her grow as a person and like believe in herself, because they get into a fight later on and she goes a whole level even without him. She will not call him, and thus he can't show up. He can watch, but I think that added to kind of Ophelia learning that like she can do it herself as well. She's
Yes, their
capable.
fights are quite interesting. There
Yeah.
is a disagreement at one point where he's
Yeah.
like, let's just make it a business agreement. Like, the feelings are beginning to get caught.
Right. Well, and so that's another layer, is that if
Yeah.
you fall in love in Phantasma, you'll be cursed and you can't be together. And like that, I hate that as a rule. That's
That
so
was
unfair.
an interesting Uno reverse card. Like, that was interesting. I will
Yeah.
say that, like, it made the we can't do this, but I still want you, which is a very interesting trope. I recently read a book that had that, where it's like, we cannot be
Mm.
together, but that kind of makes it even better. Ooh, we're not supposed to do it. It's one of those
I
things where
know.
it's like, I'm saving this for tomorrow, but then your brain is like, but what about tonight? And it's
Yeah.
like, no, stop it. And it's one of those things where it's like, I know you're flirting with me. That is the vibe. He's like, we can't do this. And she's like, no, we can't do this. 3 chapters later, let's fuck. That's the energy. We're literally in a haunted circus. You know what we should do? Boink. Like, it's one of those things we should, I feel like a middle school boy. We should put our parts together. It's one of those things where that's what it felt like. But
Yeah.
it also felt like I couldn't get every single time he said angel, I was like, why? Like, most pet names come from like a conversation they had, and the
Mm-hmm.
girl's like, oh, don't call me that, or like, there was no context. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, interesting. And it wasn't instant love. I feel like it was more like instant attraction. I would not describe this book as an insta love romance. I wouldn't describe it that way. It felt more like instant, like
I
he
agree.
definitely wanted her pretty early on. But I think it was more like sexy interest. I don't think that was like emotional yet.
Yeah. No,
You
I agree. I agree. And because I
Yeah.
didn't mention too of like, I think he was hitting his cusp of like hopelessness. He couldn't even remember back far enough to know what had happened or what he was looking for or whatever. And he kind of mentioned that like the few times he had kissed a contestant or like made out or whatever was simply because like there's no way they were going to win and he had just kind of given up. So, that's
Man.
so
sounds like the TV shows I watch. Me watching toxic television. Wow. Sounds like Love Island, but demonic?
yeah,
It
you
sounds
know
like a
what,
demonic Love Island.
what's so funny is that if they made this into a show or a movie, I think it would like, if they did it accurately, I would watch it, but I would also I already suffer from chronic nightmares, and this would
Ooh.
100% agitate it. This would terrify me.
There's gore. For
It's
sure.
stuff popping up, and like the way they describe the haunts, and this I was just like, this it's an intense book.
That's the person who has the scream stuffy behind them in the skull with the snake.
That I mean, okay, that was a gift from a friend.
Hmm.
That was Halloween decor from Michael's. I like
Mm-hmm.
snakes. I do like snakes.
You know what? It's
Ghosts.
okay. It's okay. I have a stuffy duck. It's a positivity duck.
Yeah.
That
Oh
if that's not our
no.
aesthetics comparison,
This
if
yeah.
that's not our aesthetics, I don't know what is.
This was a
Me,
gift.
I have my little stuffy duck, and you're like, I like masked men. I'm like, me too. This is great.
This was
I'm like,
another
little
gift
stuffy
my
duck.
friend got me. I was like, my friends know me so
That's
well.
so cute. This is literally our aesthetics side
Little
by side. Like, me with all the colorful books, and then
yeah.
you with all the black and white books, and
I
I'm like,
have
it's
the
us.
spider right there
That is
under
so
another
cool.
giant skull. It's a thing.
Yes, it is literally our aesthetic in comparison, but we love the same
Right.
books, so it
Yes.
ultimately works out. But
Exactly. Exactly.
yes, also I
But
forgot to mention
yeah.
in the lust one,
Mhm.
um I think it was something about like that in that place you only desire like who you've always most wanted. So when she
Yeah.
sees Blackwell, he's like, ooh, so you like me? She's like, no, it's like my mind. It's not me, it's my mind. He's like, uh-huh.
It basically gave away like what she was like, yeah, you were there, and he was like, really? I was there. I wonder why that could be, Angel.
I'm like, dang, girl. She's like, she's trying to keep her stuff together, but I'm like, I think I think he's been to these games so many times. Like, either he can't remember, like he knows what each floor, like what's going on, but nonetheless, um, I am waiting for us to get to the part where also Ophelia's powers.
Yeah.
So she could become specter like. So like she has a physical body, she is human, but she's able to become like from my understanding, like translucent esque.
Yeah.
I
That's
was
what I
like,
pictured. Like essentially a ghost. Like you could still see a little bit, but essentially everything would just pass through.
yeah. And then she had like sparks. Like she could do little sparks with her hands. And I was like, yeah, girl, yeah, you get it, Sparky. Yeah, she get a little Sparky. So I was like,
Yeah.
that's cool. It was a lot more epic in the book, but I was like, yeah. And then I made a list of pros and cons about the book, and I'm waiting for us to get to certain things.
Yeah.
There are big spoilers, and I'm just like,
You're good. You're good.
yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if there's any other levels you specifically want to talk about, but kind of the main
The
things.
choking one was the one where she was choking him, and then it was not really him, but it
Right,
was
right,
like
right.
him standing beside her, and he was like, "Oh, I am into this. If you ever need to hurt me like a weapon," she's like, "What? No, I'm choking you. It's you." He's like, "No, it's not me. I'm right here.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see
yeah.
what you're doing."
But
He's very like baby girl esque, where he's kind of a brat. Like she's like, "Don't follow me." He's like, "I'll follow you even harder." Like he's very
yeah.
like, I love that. Like where it's very like grumpy sunshine is a trope I see quite a lot. This felt more
Yeah.
like he was a brat and she was not dominant, but I think she could be a switch. But he was very much like
Mhm.
everything she told him not to do.
Mhm.
He was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. Yeah, like super. And I was like, you know
Right.
what,
And
Blackwell? Yeah,
it was never arrogant. The way he
no,
played with it was completely like it just felt super playful and
agreed.
something that she felt safe with, and not like, I think a lot of times you get that when you have like this demon that's like thousands of years old and he's like, I know everything really great, and she's like, oh, I don't know how to
Hella
do
jaded.
anything.
Yeah,
But
Blackwell still felt pretty young. Like I like
yeah, no,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, 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 for
He's
sure.
frozen at like 28. Like that's what it felt like. It felt like he was still in like his late 20s. I was like, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Theo James, he could play snarky very well. I was like, okay, Theo
Yeah.
James. Yeah. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
can see
yeah.
that. Okay.
So we already kind of covered how she found Genevieve
Mm-hmm.
eventually, and then it's like a level
It's a
or
little
two later,
anticlimactic.
a level or two later, she's
Yeah.
like, well, we're gonna end up having to, like, there can only be one winner, so you have to forfeit. And Genevieve's like, okay. Like that's kind of it.
Not even a problem. She's like, yeah, all
I
right, you
mean,
take the L. I'll do it.
yeah. So there's more in the background. We learn about who their dad is and how both of their parents were also contestants of Phantasma who fell in
Mm-hmm.
love. Thus, they got cursed. So the mom essentially went into hiding to keep the dad away because he was like super obsessed and like a little crazy in there. And so eventually the dad went to play Phantasma again to try to win to be able to get the wish of finding them, basically. And that's how he dies. And because they're tied together, that's why the mom died also. That was a pretty sad realization. I will say that caused me to pause for a second and be like, oh man, that sucked.
I just felt like if they were willing to go in the darkest path, like with the parents, I was really fucking scared because like we still
Yeah.
didn't know like Blackwell's backstory. So I
Right.
was like, wait, so her parents like doomed romance. All right, we're willing to go there.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, okay, what's up with him?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is he stuck here? what's up with the memory? Like, honestly, the mystery of him for me, plus the doomed romance, I was like, oh, it's gonna get dark. It's gonna get dark. I could tell. It was already dark before, but for some reason, like when it hit like her parents, I was like, oh, this is generational. I was like, yeah, it's about to get crazy.
When you start,
also sorry if you hear my family dog in the background. I apologize.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah. So let's uncover that. How that all comes to be. So basically, she can open up this portal door to anywhere, and they're like, "Ooh, maybe don't do that." And she's like, "No, I'm gonna go. Take me to level 9, or like right to the winning people." And okay, I figured it out though. I figured it out earlier. I can't remember who was talking to her. Jasper, maybe when Jasper was explaining the situation, it was Jasper or Sinclair, and
I honestly blocked out St. Clair after they did stuff together. So Blackwell and her have feelings, right?
Yeah,
things are happening. Something happens between them. He's like, we should go back to business. She's like,
yeah,
oh, F you, fight, F you. And then St. Clair is there, and he's all flirty, and they end up doing stuff together.
Yeah.
And she does consent. Like, she's like, yeah, like, touch me, like, let's go. And they're doing stuff, but then she stops.
And
but
he stops
they
too.
do stuff.
This is good. Get a good time. And yeah, I mean, yeah.
They do
I
stuff.
honestly, I respect her for standing by her choice. And then she was like, actually, no. And he backed off, and that was that. Causes more problems down the road. But
Blackwell's like, Blackwell comes back, and he's like, what the F? And she's like, what do you mean what the
actually,
F? He said all business. And he's like, I don't want you doing that stuff with other people. And she went, all business. And I went, all business. That's what you said. Oh. And he's like, I don't want you feeling those feelings and making those faces and feeling those. And I was like, okay, then you shouldn't have opened the door to her doing the thing. And so there's more tension there.
Yeah.
And she wants answers. Like, her mom is gone. Her dad is gone. Her sister just dipped out. So it's really now on her. Like, it's a lot.
I don't like his original name.
Okay, so we're gonna
it's so ridiculous. Yeah, let's
one.
Get into it. The big reveal.
The big one.
What started it all.
The original cringe. All right, guys, I hope you're ready, because we're gonna unlock something that's very controversial for people who've read this book. We're gonna dive right into it.
So, from what I understood, granted, I read this book so fast I didn't take notes. I was just there purely for the vibes. But Blackwell is I don't like it. Okay, how do you say it? Salamaestris? Salamaestris.
I thought it was just like Salamis? Salamet. See, I'm notorious for saying names improperly. I used to say Rysand, like Resand, like a Reese's cup. So those are those things where I'm like, I said that for years. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Let's just call him like a shorty, like a Salem. Like, his name was like the equivalent of like a Salem. And he actually is the prince of the devil. And his dad was like, be with me, you're on my side, like, choose me, I'm your father, I love you. And in the most that he can, because he's super evil and horrible. And Salem is like, oh, but I fell in love with this girl named Angel. And he has to choose between his dad and Angel. Yeah. And he chooses true love. He chooses his girlfriend, his love, his true love.
Yeah, yeah.
And long story short,
Daddy doesn't like that.
Daddy doesn't like that. And then also, big twist, the guy that Ophelia messed around with, St. Clair, he is involved with the lore. Because he was involved with like the whole Angel Salem situation.
Is he like his friend?
Yeah,
well, or just kind of like slash. Yeah. So basically, he was like, Daddy was like, take him to Phantasma. This is where you're gonna be stuck. After Angel.
They torture her for like 3.
Right.
She's
It's
human, and they
terrible.
tortured
Yeah.
her for like 3 days.
It's pretty rough. And
Yeah,
but
she died.
then the twist is that because Poe the cat is also his assistant. Because yeah, absolutely.
I love cats.
Um,
I was here for the pet
no,
representation.
for sure, for sure.
I like it.
Yeah. Um, but then there was a part where specifically they were like, "Hey, we'll give him another chance with this. We'll test him down the road, but it's not going to be for X amount of years." So he forgets essentially what happens.
But he remembers her soul. So he may
Right.
not remember how she looks, and he doesn't remember like the sound of her voice.
Right.
But he remembers like her soul.
Right.
Gothic. But he remembers her soul. And it turns out that Ophelia is the reincarnated version of Angel, but she does not know that.
Right.
So every single time that he calls her Angel when they were like effing and all those like bantery moments we thought that were like earned, like present day Ophelia, like earned, he really is just calling her the name of his first girlfriend. Which, when you think about it, it's like, could you imagine like having intimate, sweet moments with someone and like banter is a huge part of your love story, and then you find out the name they gave you isn't even original.
Yeah.
It's also not even your name.
Yeah.
It's someone else's actual name that they effed. Oh.
Yeah.
No. And loved. They effed and they loved.
That's
a
Times
lot.
have changed. That is a lot. That's a lot to uncover.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I will, and for every like ish like not great thing, I am going to express one thing that I liked within the story that balance it out. I liked the play of magic. So like her being a necromancer, his dad being the devil, this like really dark setting, like the gothic element, the author really poured her heart and soul into that. The audiobook was 13 hours and 14 minutes. Unless you're like me and you put it on super fast. It was free on Kindle Unlimited, and the physical book length, according to Google, is 512 pages.
Which I read like that.
It's a very easily read book. The audiobook narrator, I apologize if I say their last name wrong, Laura Horowitz, her voice was so distinct. And I felt very like I could see I'm a very visual person in my mind, but the way that she pronounced and the way that she was able to give a sense of who Ophelia was amazing. It's very rare I've read a fantasy book with such beautiful work, and Laura really did her big one. Like that was amazing. Yes. And then also we find out, we kept winking about curses, the curse that is put on Salem, who now we know as Blackwell, Theo James. This man is literally cursed. So now with Ophelia falling in love with him and he's falling for her in Phantasma, he tells her like, don't say it. Don't say it. Like, and she's like, I have to.
Boom, cursed.
Oh, cursed. Oh, cursed. And you know he feels the same way. And it's like, oh, it's doomed. And
which
it's
So that has me curious, is that a loophole where you can feel it, but the minute you say it, like if you verbally acknowledge it, that's when the curse sets
that would have been kind of cool to see. Like it would have been cool
because I would have just been like,
there weren't necessarily enemies to lovers, but it did feel like it would have been nice to hear her say like, I hate you.
Yeah.
And him be like, no, you don't. It would have been so good to have like a
because then that would have been that would have been part of their lore, part of their banter. Like every time, I hate you is how they say I love you, because they couldn't say it.
Dude, we should write about me and you. We should just throw this together, bro. So let's do a remix. Like it's totally
throw in all of our favorite elements
together. If we wrote a book, it would be unhinged. It would be like darkness, octopus, monster, horseback riding, fighting, vampires, throw it all in. It would
the
be
most
crazy.
Random mesh, but it would make sense and everyone would love it.
Oh yeah, it would be super amazing. But yes, that was an interesting element. Also, I did want to break down some of the book tropes because there's a lot of things going on. So there's the game element. Would you describe this as a romantasy?
Yeah, I don't personally, I understand the distinction between like romantasy and paranormal romance. In my head, they're like the same thing. So, like, I lump it all together, as in that's what I enjoy. I'm aware that they're two different things. I would say so. I think the whole concept of Phantasma is just different enough that you don't feel like you are in just like you don't feel like it's just a necromancer in a modern world. You are somewhere else while you're at Phantasma. So that brings you into the fantasy realm, I think, a little bit more.
I could see that. The darker themes and gothic vibes. There is gore. There is discussion of death. The game element. It's set in New Orleans. Tournament. Sexy moments. I would give this book like 2, maybe 3 peppers, just because when they do sleep together, he is in a physical form. He's not. It's not like the best description I can give. It's not like Kimberly Lemmings, like the time I got drunk and you did a love potion at a werewolf. There's no like phantom body parts like doing multiple things. It's not as racy as I thought it was gonna be. Like maybe I've just read a lot of spice. It wasn't the way I think it was advertised being so hot, and so I was like, oh.
I think that was more attributed to Blackwell's nature of just being very spicy and witty in the way that so super smooth.
Yeah.
But I also am curious to see where it goes because it's only the first book. So usually there's a ramp up. So like we couldn't go super crazy in this one because she's holding out for the next book. Potentially. Maybe. We both have not read it yet. So we'll see. No. We'll revisit that.
Enchantra. Yes. I think it's called Enchantress or Enchantra. But you don't quote me on that. But yes, I'm sitting here and I'm like, that is definitely a vibe. I really enjoyed the complex female main character. Lots of ghost schools, paranormal elements. I would describe Blackwell as morally gray. I think the whole angel thing made him morally gray, even though he didn't know.
I don't blame him for that. I'm not mad at that. That didn't bother me. It was a sucky situation, but Alyssa, I was so in love with that man.
You're pulled into the Theo James of it all.
I'm so in love with that man. I don't care.
No, I'm seeing you like don't go down that dark hall. What there's a meme was like, don't go down that dark hallway. Don't go on treacherous roads. And don't go in the sea.
And I'm there right now. I'm there like, but Daddy, I love him.
No, don't do it. You're like the temptation. I'm sitting here and I'm like, you know what? It's okay. X marks the spot. And in this situation, the red flags are all leading to this fine ass man. And I get it. I totally get it. I have a few morally gray women in books where I'm like, did she kill people? Yes. Is she a bad person? 100%. If she asks me on a date, would I say yes? Fictionally? Yes. So there's just certain things you can't explain. So yes, Daddy, I love him. In this situation, Daddy, Blackwell is approved. 110%. And I will say that the morally gray for me is more so the whole let's keep it business, and then getting mad at her when she like didn't. It's her body. She can do what she wants. But like, you weren't exclusive. You're in a hellhole. What? You didn't have time to talk about that.
It did originally start as a business deal. She was going to help him. He was going to help her. Yeah. That's all it was.
Should be able to have, St. Clair and his evil ass canoodle with her for a minute if she desires so. Like, But I won't lie. My toxic trait when it comes to books, I do like a little bit of possessiveness. The jealousy trope.
Me too.
And there's something about like it's even though what is
I got so excited I made my camera go completely blurry.
That's my vision. When the person's like, who did this to you? Or like, if they touch you, their hands are gone.
Yes.
There's something for the Haunting Adeline girlies out there. Yes, there I have a love-hate relationship with that book. But there's something about an unhinged, dark, sexy, you're mine. Like he growls. What does that sound like? I don't know, but it's provocative. That's the energy. Like it's just very, some things just work. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So for me, I'm like, are they sound? No. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It works, it works. So Blackwell, the situation, his anger, it confirmed we already knew. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, look who's pissed off
Right.
and horny. So it was very
Yep.
interesting. But
Yep.
yes. How did you feel about the ending? Do you feel like it was rushed? Did it wrap up well?
Mm.
They do, spoiler alert, they
Mhm.
do end up together.
Mhm.
And then the epilogue does show them like a week later. And they're still
Yeah.
really happy together.
Yeah, so essentially she figures it out. The locket that she has is the heart, her heart essentially that's like outside of her body. And anyways, they solve it and she's able to remove the curse as her
Mm-hmm.
like winning gift. And so Phantasma ends and essentially he comes to stay with her and Genevieve at their mother's home that they have. So I
And they were
think,
able to save, I guess.
yeah, it does wrap up pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad at it, but I will say it was quick, and also with how much happens in the story, um, like I said, I'm not mad at it.
Yeah.
There was just a lot going on, so a quick little way to wrap it up. I do think that there's something that always comes with kind of like all of this strife for them to be together, and then you just like fast forward a month or two and they're like just a happy couple, and there's something like you're just like, whoa, wait a minute, like I love that for you, but hang on 1 second.
I think it's more so like I would love the idea of like if they met. I guess the best way I could describe it is like Kate and Anthony and Bridgerton, right? They were
Mm,
bickering when they met. They were flirting and disagreeing.
mhm,
So when you meet
mhm.
them in the future and everything's wind down, they're still bickering. They're still
Yeah,
disagreeing, but they're
yeah,
in love and it
yeah,
seems to work. And,
yeah.
you know,
That's a
so
good
for
point.
me, I would have liked to seen like, you know, in the epilogue if I could rewrite it. And that's a good question for you as well. If you could
Mhm,
rewrite the epilogue, what would you have wanted to see? I
mhm,
would have wanted to see them like doing like a haunted house.
mhm.
You know what I mean? Like it would have been kind
Mm,
of
mhm.
fun to have
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
haunted house and like,
yeah.
you know, maybe like throwing daggers or something like
I
that. Like,
Yeah,
you
I
know, that
like
would be
that.
kind of fun.
I do like how she kind of found her purpose in life of
Yeah.
wanting to help other paranormal individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a nice spin to put on it. I think there's a part of me that is not so enamored by it in the sense of it very much felt like the ending of their stories,
Mm.
and that kind of essentially is the case because book 2 is about Genevieve, which I'm always curious to see how I'll like it, and I'm
Yeah,
feel like I will like it, but there's always a part of me that's resistant to it because, like, I like to fall hard for the main characters, and I wanna stay with the main characters. That
that's
being
true.
said, I'm a Nesta girly with ACOTAR, so, like, I can see it, but I part of me was like, "Oh, no, they're happy. I think that's it," 'cause I guess there's always a
It kind
chance
of
that it could be.
ended. It just
Yeah,
ended. It
yeah,
it wrapped up, and I won't. Sometimes I'm scared with sophomore books
yeah,
where it's like if freshman year was super strong, if the first book was super strong, I get
yeah.
sometimes scared with second books where I'm like, is it going to be able to carry that momentum that the first book
Yeah,
had? This is different.
especially when everything wraps up so nicely. Because
Yeah.
I was like, I have no clue where this would go next, if it would still be about them or not, but in this case, it is, Genevieve. I looked up for, Enchantra. It has a 4.36 rating
Ooh.
on Goodreads, and it says, "Ready or not, the game has begun. Genevieve Grimm has felt adrift ever since her sister became the head of the family. So when a mysterious friend of their mother's invites her to Italy, she accepts, feeling very
Ooh.
White Lotus almost.
Okay.
She arrives at his grand palace expecting passion and magic, decadence and luxury, perhaps even a midnight ball. She doesn't expect the owner's ruthlessly handsome son to slam the door in her face. Rowan Silver, great name, is tall,
Ooh.
dark, and exceptionally rude. Love it. An
Okay.
invitation or not, he demands Genevieve leave and never come back, but Genevieve follows nobody's orders, especially those of rich, arrogant boys. She slips inside and immediately discovers her mistake. Rowan and his family are caught in an insidious game of hide and seek where only one can win. The rest will be trapped in
Ooh.
hell until the competition begins again. Genevieve must either join the hunt or forfeit any hope of escaping, but to her dismay, her best chance of survival lies with Rowan. Since lovers may play as a pair, Rowan and Genevieve agree to form an alliance under the guise of a fake courtship. However, as
Wow.
they race through the game's elaborate labyrinth, trapped among gleaming gold and shining marble, their loathing gives way to irresistible attraction. Only Rowan is keeping secrets, especially when it comes to his ruthless family, and Genevieve can't help but wonder if she's trapped in two treacherous games, Enchantra and the one Rowan is playing with her heart. So
Ooh.
definitely some fun elements I'm
Book
looking
two sounds a
forward
lot.
to.
I'm not trying to poo-poo on Phantasma, please. But if it quacks like a duck and it sounds like a duck is a duck, this sounds a lot better than book one.
Really? I
Yeah.
don't know.
I'm sorry.
I love devils and I love sins, I think. So like hide and seek, I'm like,
But there's something about a
okay.
maze. Oh, there's something about a maze, bro. Like we're in a maze and there's walls and maybe a little public sexy time. There's a lot. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going
Yeah.
on.
Well, yeah.
I'm excited. I like the idea of like a challenge, and the only
Okay.
way to overcome it is like
Okay.
with your hot co-star. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I like it. I like it. So obviously we'll add these to our lists and maybe get to it
For
in
sure.
a few months or whatnot. But
Yeah.
we would love to know, what did you think of Phantasma?
Yes.
We would let us know your thoughts. And yeah.
For
Did you
sure.
love Blackwell on a scale of 1 to 10? How great was he to you?
It was. Is he? If one is 10 is daddy, I love him. So this is one of those things where it's like, do you love him? Would you go to hell for him? Would you go through
Yeah.
all these rings for him? Or is he more like a 1 where like the whole angel thing, you're like, ooh, that's gonna be a no for me, big dog? Is it like that? So yeah, let us know.
Fair.
But personally, for Blackwell, if it was a female equivalent of Blackwell, I'm so sorry. I would
That's
be an
fair.
11. I'd be
That's
an
fair.
11. I'm sorry. You would do anything for me, and I'm reincarnated, and you somehow understood my soul?
I love how if Blackwell was a female, you'd be like,
Okay.
yep, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. If he's a man, immediately I'm like, trash. Burn him.
I love it. At least you're
Gods.
aware. At
Yeah.
least you're aware. There you go.
No. Oh.
So
Oh,
our book will
I
have
know.
twins?
Yeah. If our book had 2 main characters and they were like good friends, your love interest would be like this dark and brooding, but also like has like humor and banter, and like is
Yeah.
also like just a sucker for like the main character. Like he would like bend the knee for her, but no one else.
Just let me take care of you. That's all I need in life.
I just want to care for you, but also like I'll kill all of your enemies. Like
Yeah.
for me, give me like the Darkling from
Yeah.
Shadow and Bone, but make female.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ben
Yeah.
Barnes.
Yeah.
I am a lesbian, but Ben Barnes, I think that man is so enchanting. You know what?
There you go.
Enchanting. Yes.
You know what? We're now doing book research, so if you tick any of those boxes, feel free to DM us and apply
if
for
you
research
tick
purposes.
any of those boxes, especially for my friend, please apply. Because for me, I am with my golden retriever, sweetie pie, wonderful partner, who is by no means a villain. If life was a book, she would be like the hero,
Yeah.
But sometimes when you love in books, in real life, you like the polar opposites.
That's fair. That's
Yes.
fair.
Sometimes, what you love in books,
but
you may not love in real life. So I like someone who'd run to Publix for you in the middle of the night. If you want to. That's
no,
good.
absolutely. That's important.
But in
That's
books, burn the whole world down, men gone, problems gone. Yes.
Yeah.
But
no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, this book is amazing. And there were pros and there were cons, but overall, the second book, I'm in. Like I'm interested and intrigued enough. I'm definitely down for book 2.
Perfect. Very excited for that.
Yes.
As always, thank you so much for joining me, Alyssa. I appreciate your time, your expertise, your energy, all of those beautiful things.
Thank you for having me.
If you've made it to this point in the episode, thank you so much for watching. I'd be incredibly grateful if you showed some support either by following or subscribing, depending on what platform you're watching on, and leaving a comment. You can always follow me on Instagram at Busy Reading Romantasy or on TikTok at busy.reading.romantasy to see what I'm up to. You can also email me at busyreadingromantasy@gmail.com to tell me your thoughts, dreams, secrets, or if you just have any book and author suggestions you'd love me to cover. Grab yourself a good book, get cozy. I'll see you next Wednesday for a new episode.